Thank you all for taking the time to be here. Happy Thursday. My name is Haley Tamberry. I am a regenerative health specialist, iridologist, and clinical herbalist. I run the detox method, where I lead people through one-on-one specific detoxification protocols to transform their health conditions. Whoever brought you to this call, we are all connected through health and wellness, and it is likely that this person is also qualified to help you, support you one-on-one if you have deeper needs beyond the information that we will be sharing in this call. There's a lot of powerhouses in this network, partnership, friendship between me and all the individuals who brought you to this call and each other. And we are all here in health and wellness, and together we partnered up to change the health of many. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the health of our thyroid. This is a big deal. So many people are dealing with thyroid issues, and I want to talk about the common symptoms, why we are seeing thyroid disorders increase so much, and give you all solutions that you can start implementing now on your own. I may have to do a part 2 on this topic eventually because this is a big one. The thyroid is basically, it's a butterfly-shaped gland at the base of your anterior neck, and it wraps around to the posterior as seen here. 1 in 8 people have a diagnosed thyroid disorder of some sort, and that's those that have actually been diagnosed. So how many people are walking around undiagnosed? A lot, and we'll go over those numbers and those stats later. But that's because it takes quite a while to show up in the blood to have high or low T4 or TSH. So you have to look at many signs and symptoms that your thyroid is not functioning at a healthy level. I hear it all the time from my clients. People spend years and years going to the doctor and getting tested because they don't feel normal. They don't feel like themselves anymore. And then you're told your blood test came back normal, everything's fine, until it's not. And you go on medication, and by that time, it may have turned into an autoimmune. But the medication that they use for hypo or hyperthyroid is the exact same that they use for the autoimmune versions. And we'll go over this a little bit more. And with the autoimmune portion, we believe the body has just decided to attack itself, but we will also talk more about that in a moment. And I'm probably going to do another call eventually, specifically on that topic of autoimmunity. So ultimately, your thyroid is a major endocrine organ. It is responsible for metabolism, the use of calories, energy production, weight loss, weight gain, sleep, your heartbeat, and this heartbeat, it's in conjunction with the adrenals. How essentially it's like how fast and efficient your adrenals work is regulated also by your thyroid. It also determines the length of healing time and really so much more. It is a very important aspect of our overall health, and in my opinion, it is severely overlooked. So no matter where you or your loved ones are on this journey, you can do something about it, even if it's preventative. Let's say it runs in your family. That doesn't mean that you are destined to the same fate like anything else. You can rewrite your story through the food you eat, the water you drink, the air you breathe, and the products you put on your skin, the thoughts you think, and so on. And knowing what your body is missing and why it isn't communicating properly with itself is going to be key. And like I said on this call, we will give you simple solutions that you can start implementing now. And in some cases, it may take deeper one-on-one support and care if the person who brought you to this call is qualified to help you with that journey. And I recommend getting in touch with them and getting started. So several types of thyroid disease. These are the more common symptoms that we're going to go through. But to start, I want to say like hyperthyroid. This means the thyroid is overactive. It's producing too much TSH, or T4 is too high. Hypo is it's not producing enough or properly assimilating the thyroid hormone. And then there's Graves' disease, which is the autoimmune version of hyper, and Hashimoto's, the autoimmune version of hypothyroid, underactive thyroid. So people can also get growths and goiters, which is pretty common. Some of the most common symptoms when it comes to thyroid disease is fatigue, weight gain, weight loss, depression, sexual dysfunction like vaginal dryness, low sex drive, and all of that. Menstrual abnormalities, infertility, miscarriages, and in hyperthyroid, you'll get a lot of hand tremors. So what you can do is you can set a piece of paper on your hand and hold it out in front of you. If that paper shakes, then you know you have tremors. Sometimes hand tremors are actually really hard to visibly notice. And then in that case, if you do see the paper shaking, then you know you have an overactive thyroid and nervous system, and or a high or low pulse. So that in that case, that would be a high pulse. But we can also in hypothyroid see a low pulse. So with a rapid pulse, you could be hyperactive thyroid. With a low pulse, it could also be because you're an athlete, or it could be because you have a hypothyroid condition. Okay, some of the less common symptoms that you can observe on the face particularly and over the body are dry skin. And on the face, the outer 1/3 of the eyebrow disappears. This can either be hypo or hyper. The nose can widen and actually get thicker. That's a sign of a struggling thyroid. And that will come together once the body starts to clean up and rebalance. So the eyelids will droop. So here we can really, hold on one second. Here we really see the outer, 1/3 of that eyebrow has disappeared. Like the eyebrow really goes from here to here. And this is the drooping right here. So we all kind of see that. And this one has a little bit of it as well. Lid retraction, which I don't have a picture of, is another one. That's when the eyes are bulging and they kind of look like bug eyes. This is where you actually can see the top part of the sclera. This is common in Graves' disease. And this one right here, like less common and less known. So scallops on the tongue. So stick out your tongue first thing in the morning. Your tongue rests on the inside of your teeth during sleep. And if you have scallops, like little waves on the sides, it's because your tongue has actually expanded overnight for nutrient absorption. The tongue and the thyroid will grow actually to collect up the nutrients it needs to function properly. And that tongue will no longer fit in the teeth in, your palate. And it's one of the first signs that you are micronutrient deficient. So you might also see a band around your neck, like right here, it just kind of starts to get like saggy or like inflamed. Maybe you even see a goiter. You can do a simple test if you stand in front of a mirror and take a drink of water and swallow. If while watching in a mirror, if the thyroid moves up and down, then you can see that you have inflamed tissue around that gland. In this case, I recommend giving your thyroid some love and really give yourself a lymphatic massage every single day. Some other things that you can do to really help nourish the thyroid topically is walnut oil is really good. So you can just rub walnut oil over your skin. This one is not going to be popular or common, but onion, actually, if you rub onion around your thyroid, you can crush coriander seeds and make a tea of it every single morning, first thing in the morning. All that is very nourishing for your thyroid. But these are just some of the less common signs that you will see visually. Okay, so some more less common signs are itchy skin, hives. This is all a sign for low thyroid. And the reason is because the thyroid health is so deeply connected to the liver. The thyroid actually controls all of your metabolic functions within the body. The proper functions of every organ within your endocrine system is regulated by the thyroid, essentially. So if your thyroid is down, everything else is going to be down, and that includes your liver, your pancreas, your bowels, and literally all metabolic function. So cholestasis, it's common to get during pregnancy, the liver condition, and it presents with itchy skin. They will test you for elevated liver enzymes, and this is related to the thyroid. High cholesterol is also related to hypothyroidism because the thyroid regulates the adrenals, and the adrenals regulate your cholesterol production. So when we have high acid in the body, we will have high damage, and high acid will be buffered with cholesterol. Itchy ears is another one. When you have itchy ears, itchiness in the ears, it is because there's a candida overgrowth, which is incredibly common if you think about it, since your thyroid controls all of your metabolic functions within the body. Everything is going to be working less in a hypo state, which means more pathogenic and candida bacteria. Sinusitis, so having constant congestion up in the nose and pressure in the sinuses. So you think about it, if we're having a lot of inflammation and lymphatic waste in this area of the body, it makes sense that these tissues like the ears and the sinuses are all going to be affected because they are literally all right next to each other. So fluid retention is another one. If you go on a weight loss journey and right away you lose weight, that has a lot to do with the thyroid. So you can do a test where you press your thumbs on your shin. So I'm wearing leggings. This is not really that accurate right now. And if you let go and you still see an indentation, that means you have some level of fluid retention. Sometimes people will have really bumpy shins. That's another sign you can look at. So that is another test you can do. Okay, we'll run through some more. Some others are gastritis, heartburn. It's really, really important because, again, the thyroid is regulating metabolic function. So that means we're not going to be digesting properly. It's going to cause upstream effects. Constipation is another sign of a underactive thyroid. An overactive, it'll usually be the opposite. So we see constipation, miscarriages, postpartum depression. The parathyroid also can come into play here too, and frequent headaches because, again, it's controlling all metabolic functions, as well as the hormonal ones. Cracks in the heels. So this is a severe level of dryness in the body and fungus that is related, again, to the thyroid. This is a long list of symptoms that are common and some not as common. And so don't go assuming, I just don't want anyone to go assuming that you have a thyroid issue and freaking out. But if you have many of these signs, then it can be a sign that there is an imbalance in the body. And it doesn't mean that you need to rush to the doctor and get tested and start taking medication right away, right? Because if you take it, your body will never make it, pushing your thyroid into a further imbalance. But with this information, you can now make the decision to change an environment in your body and rebalance your system. I absolutely love working with individuals with thyroid imbalances. It is possibly because it's happening to a majority of my caseload since it is so common, but there is something special about it. And oftentimes we aren't even treating the thyroid itself. It's the pathways, the root causes, as we're going to discuss here. Okay, so you go to the doctor with weight gain, fatigue, hot flashes, infertility, depression, maybe even hair loss, or some of the other common symptoms. They send you out for blood work and everything comes back normal. This may happen for years and years. According to the American Academy of Clinical Endocrinologists, there are 27 million people in this country with a thyroid condition, and surprisingly, only half of them actually get diagnosed. But why? Because it's that far progressed at that point to show up in the blood. And then you're put on thyroxine or Synthroid, which are synthetic forms of T4, and we'll touch on this in a moment. But usually at that point, you are also maybe diagnosed with an autoimmune. 90% of cases of hypothyroid also have Hashimoto's, or same thing with Graves. I'll do another call on Hashimoto and Graves specifically, again, coming up soon. It's too much information to go up over in this short amount of time. But I will say it's actually better when it hasn't shown up in the blood, because that means the lymph is still kind of managing it and it hasn't made it into the blood system yet. And you can work backwards faster from there. So why your blood work comes back normal, but you still don't feel well? because the problem may not actually be your thyroid. I know this is confusing, but just stay with me. Your thyroid levels can be normal on a blood test because blood is a faulty diagnostics tool. It does not test intracellular, which means by the time things show up in the blood, it's progressed at a high level. People live for years with thyroids that are not properly getting the signaling that they need to be in harmony and operate efficiently. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. This is released by the pituitary, and it tells the thyroid to produce T4. T4 is then converted in the liver to T3. The T3 is the usable form of the thyroid hormone that can go into the cell to relay its information. It's what binds to the receptors. And I feel like I go over this on a lot of calls, but every one of our cell membranes has plenty of different receptors that are specific, like lock and key, for the different hormones to come and attach there. So T4 is not the hormone that comes, it gets converted to T3. So the reasons that these levels could be normal: 1, T4 does not actually convert to the active form T3. Doctors will then put you on synthetic T4, but your liver could still not be converting the T4 to the active form T3 because it is stressed out by toxic overload in the body. So no information is getting into the cell. Sometimes when we are in a stressed out fight or flight state, the body will conserve energy to survive. Survival is always the body's first and basic priority, which means it will shunt the conversion of usable T3 to reverse T3. Reverse T3 is a mirror image of usable T3. However, unlike T3, its sole purpose is to block the receptors on the cell for T3, and in turn, this conserves energy. So you see how the body is almost working against itself just to protect itself and survive. So we have to address the stress internally as well as externally, always, 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 always. And the second reason, maybe you are converting T4 to the active T3, but T3 can't bind to the receptors on the cells because the cells are blocked with inflammation or deep lymphatic congestion, AKA lymphatic waste. So I've said it before, we are trillions of cells, bacteria, and 2 fluids, blood and lymph. The blood feeds and the lymph cleans every organ, gland, and tissue. So if we're accumulating waste and we're not eliminating it, where do you think it hangs out? Around the cells. So that inflammation, that acidosis, is what blocks the receptors. And I like to say this as well, hormone problems aren't always the problem. The problem is whether the hormones can actually bind to the receptors, right? Hormone resistance is a massive epidemic driven by cellular inflammation, in my opinion. And the fact that diabetes and hypothyroidism are on the rise is in this country really is a proof that we don't really understand hormone resistance. So even if you are put on thyroxine or Synthroid, you still may have an environment in your body that is not able to properly convert or allow T3 to bind to the cell and do its job in information transfer. So what if we have Hashimoto's or Graves'? And like I said, 90% of hypothyroidism, by the time it's diagnosed with Hashimoto's. But why? Well, conventionally, we believe that this condition is random due to genetics with no explanation, and just that the body just randomly decides one day to start attacking itself. And we know that in regenerative health, that specifically means there has been an accumulation of waste, parasites, and chemicals that have been passed down or accumulated over many years in the tissues around the thyroid. Why? Because parasites, fungus, pathogenic bacteria all increase in numbers to clean up that which doesn't support life anymore, AKA our own accumulation of acidic wastes and toxins. So now the immune system is in a full-on war. It just starts attacking because it's exhausted and overwhelmed, and there's just too many things to do. And there's too many guys out there basically on the field, and it just can't tell the difference. So it's essentially your immune system is doing its job. It's bombarded, it's cluttered. So literally you have to remove that environment and get rid of this accumulation of waste and let the immune system re-regulate so it can start breathing again and recognizing what is what. I like to think of this example as like, I don't know, like Lord of the Rings or like a war movie or something where, you know, both sides just kind of go running towards each other and then just start fighting. And there's always a moment in the movie where you're like, I don't know who's who. Like, I can't tell. Like there's too much drama, too much action going on right now. And that's like, in a sense, I kind of think that's the point the immune system starts taking, where it's like, I don't really know who's who. There's too many people out there. But we just have to get that environment in check and rebalanced. So gluten sensitivity is linked to Hashimoto's. But I want to make this point. Gluten is not the problem. The problem is the chemical pesticides such as glyphosate, aka Roundup. I don't think that anyone's diet should consist of breads, pastas, pizzas, beer, etc. These foods will not give you vibrant energy or good health. But we blame the gluten for causing these issues, and that is just not true. Gluten is a very sticky substance that binds very well with glyphosate, which is a chemical pesticide. And together this forms a very sticky substance called mucoid plaque that binds to the microvilli in the small intestine. The small intestine is what is responsible for nutrient uptake. The essential micronutrients that your thyroid needs is iodine, iron, copper, selenium, zinc, vitamin D. Selenium and zinc are very important for the conversion of T4 to T3. If you are deficient in vitamin D, you are more likely to get an autoimmune response, like chronically deficient. If your thyroid will not function properly, basically without any of these nutrients. And the thyroid controls metabolic functions, and the parathyroid controls the calcium utilization in the body. So when we start to see like osteoarthritis, osteopenia, this is a parathyroid weakness. And the body is not guarding calcium and instead leaching it from bone and connective tissue. That's a whole nother talk. So just remember, if the thyroid is down, all other glands are not functioning optimally. And this is endocrine glands as well as the digestive glands and organs, since it is in charge of metabolism. So why is it so important to make sure your thyroid is functioning optimally? Because you'll have a pileup of symptoms and no other organ was actually going to know how to perform or what to do. So we already talked about how the liver and inflammation and the buildup of acidic waste in the lymphatic system play a huge role. But another thing to note is that 100% of the time you have a thyroid issue, you also have a gut issue. You could be pooping every day, and that still doesn't mean that you don't have a leaky gut or a malabsorption issue. If your gut bacteria is down, that would be the main thing that disrupts the communication to the brain. The bacteria in your gut is, what makes your food bioavailable to us, but it is also what communicates to our brain. So the bacteria in your gut communicates to the hypothalamus, which in this case produces TRH, thyroid releasing hormone. And this thyroid releasing hormone goes to the pituitary, which is the master gland of the entire endocrine system. The pituitary then sends TSH to the thyroid stimulating hormone, and tells the thyroid to produce T4. So without proper bacteria to initiate this communication pathway, messages are really not getting to the thyroid or the hypothalamus or the pituitary, and nobody really knows what to do. This chain of communication is just not there. So why are we lacking in essential nutrients? We may be eating food with these nutrients, or we may not. But even if we are, it is an absorption issue at that point. In this country, we are chronically overfed and undernourished. So in order to correct and rebalance the thyroid, we have to heal the gut and get on a micronutrient-rich diet. So the issues that we see in our current day is that our soils are so incredibly depleted of nutrients. of micronutrients that we are starting to see a crazy amount of thyroid disease. Like it's happening younger and younger and younger, and to a majority women. So not only are we micronutrient deficient, we are actually exposed to chemical pesticides that are causing leaky gut and endocrine imbalances, as well as hormone imbalances, infertility, autoimmune, and the rest. So whoever brought you to this call is partnered with me, and we work with amazing solutions to remove glyphosate out of our gut, to remove that mucoid plaque, and to rebalance it, helping the microvilli, helping the ability for the microvilli to absorb nutrients. So technically speaking, in our gut, we should have between 30,000 and 40,000 different species of bacteria. That's a lot. And we should be getting it from the environment, from the food that we eat. Probiotics touch a very little range and actually foster deep imbalances due to the fact that they only have between 7 and sometimes they boast 50 different species, but they take those at a copy of 7 billion. And when we don't actually need that much of that small, tiny little range, it pushes out the rest. So do not go out and buy all these individual micronutrients. Isolates are worse for your body because they're made in a lab in megadoses, and your body cannot properly utilize them. So you are essentially paying for expensive urine and stressing out your liver and your kidneys in the process, which, like we said, the liver is very important in thyroid health, as well as the gut lining. It is important to use whole food, micronutrient dense, rich organic supplements to heal the body. And like I said, the person who brought you to this call, we are all connected in this amazing company, and this is how you can get started right now in building your foundation. It's how I start everybody before they go through deep detox, if that's what they even need. So whether it's preventative or not, if you find yourself needing deeper support, it's likely the person who brought you to this call is qualified to help you through a protocol. And it's worth it. How you feel internally is how you show up in life. And if they aren't a health and wellness practitioner, they have a way for you to get connected to me for deeper support if that is what you need. So I'm going to go ahead and stop now so that we can do question and answer.